One city, two stadiums, and a rivalry so intense it has produced more red cards than any other match in Premier League history. They call it the Friendly Derby, but don't let the name fool you. Behind the handshakes lies a century-old battle for the very soul of Liverpool. Welcome back to Sportx Radar. You are watching the fourth installment of our Ultimate Derby Series. After diving into the world's fiercest football wars, today we land in the north of England to witness a clash of red versus blue. How did a dispute over rent create two of the most iconic clubs in football? And why is this rivalry considered the most unique and yet the most bitter in the British game? Stick around, because we're uncovering the secrets behind the Merseyside Derby.
All right, let's dive into one of football's most legendary rivalries. Liverpool versus Everton, the Merseyside Derby. Now, you've probably heard it called the Friendly Derby, right? It conjures up images of families just having a bit of a laugh. But the real story? Well, it's so much deeper than that, rooted in a history of bitter political conflict, religious divides, and a city basically splitting in two. So let's start right there with that nickname. Is this derby really friendly? Or is that just a nice, clean label we've put on top of a deep, messy, century-old conflict? We're going to peel back the layers and investigate the true origins of a rivalry that didn't just define two clubs, it defined the very soul of a city. On the surface, the image is one of total harmony. You see the photos all the time, families, some in blue, some in red, sitting right next to each other at Anfield or Goodison Park. But just underneath that surface lies this fierce historical undercurrent. This was never, ever just about a game of football. It was about political power, about religious identity, about cultural survival. The story of this derby is the story of Liverpool itself. To really get this rivalry, we have to go right back to its birth. And its birth was, well, it was a schism, a messy political breakup that happened right at Anfield. This wasn't some simple business disagreement, you know? This was the foundational political act that forged two competing identities out of just one club. And believe me, this all happened incredibly fast. Picture this, it's 1891, and Everton Football Club is playing its home games at Anfield. That ground was owned by their own chairman, a guy named John Holding. But Holding wasn't just a businessman, he was a major local politician. A pretty simple argument over rent suddenly snowballed into a full-blown ideological war. By 1892, the Everton board had had enough. They walked out, leaving Holding with a stadium, but no team. So what does he do? He just creates his own, Liverpool FC. And to get why this split was such a huge deal, you've got to understand the politics of that time. Holding was a conservative, a Tory, plugged into the city's powerful Protestant establishment. The Everton board, they were mostly liberals, connected with non-conformist chapels. So this wasn't just about money, it was a fundamental clash of worldviews. Holding's Toryism was more individualistic, a business-first kind of approach. The Liberal board, on the other hand, had a more collectivist, community-focused vision for their club. You can really hear the conviction, or maybe the stubbornness, in Holding's famous declaration when he was left with that empty stadium. He said, "I cannot have them play on a ground of which I am the owner and not get any rent." Now, yeah, it sounds like a business complaint, but it was also a statement of political will. He was not going to give up his ground, his power base. No way. He was going to build something new, and he was going to build it in his own image. But here's the crucial thing. This split at Anfield didn't happen in a vacuum. The club's division was a perfect mirror of the divisions already tearing the city of Liverpool apart. To understand the football, you have to understand the city's incredibly volatile social landscape. And I mean, just look at this number. It is absolutely staggering. In the mid-19th century, people were fleeing the Great Famine in Ireland, and hundreds of thousands of them arrived in Liverpool. The city's population just exploded. This massive demographic shift created enormous social and political pressure, and it fundamentally changed Liverpool's identity, setting the stage for all kinds of conflict. So what you get are these two distinct and often opposing power blocks in the city. On one side, you had the established English community, largely Protestant and Unionist, who controlled the city's politics and business. And on the other, you had the new and rapidly growing Irish population, largely Catholic and often nationalist, who were just fighting for a foothold in a new land. And we're not talking about abstract ideas here. These were the fault lines of daily life. Your religion, where you were from, your politics, your economic class, all of it determined where you lived, the job you could get, and the community you belonged to. The city was this patchwork of tribal allegiances long before its football clubs even existed. So, naturally, all these deep-seated divisions needed symbols. They needed public arenas where these identities could be put on display and fought over. The football stadiums became exactly that. They weren't just places to watch a match, they became political fortresses, the weekly rallying points for their communities. After the big split, it was almost inevitable what would happen next. The clubs just naturally aligned with these existing divisions in the city. Everton, with its liberal and Methodist roots, became more and more associated with the city's Irish and Catholic communities. And Liverpool FC, founded by the Tory establishment figure John Holding, became the symbolic club of the city's Protestant unionist tradition. And just like that, the battle lines were drawn. Oh, and you better believe the press at the time just poured gasoline on this fire. Headlines would often talk about the derby in starkly political or religious terms. You'd see reports mentioning the Protestant team versus the Catholic club. This wasn't even subtext, people. It was right there in black and white. The media actively hammered these identities home, hardening them with every single match report. For so many people, this stuff was deeply personal. An older fan might tell you something like, you were born a blue or a red. It was about which church your family went to, which street you lived on. It was more than football, it was who you were. This wasn't a choice, it was an inheritance, passed down from one generation to the next. Okay, so that's the history lesson. But does any of this still matter? I mean, have all these old divisions just faded away? Well, the answer is it's complicated. The old sectarian lines have definitely blurred, but the echo of that past, it's still very much audible in the rivalry today. You can see this legacy in three key ways. First, who you support is still deeply tied to family and community tradition. Second, you can still hear these faint political stereotypes whispered about the club's fan bases. And third, it absolutely shapes the unique atmosphere of Derby Day. That intensity comes from something much deeper than just local pride. It carries the weight of all that history. You know, if you look at the history, a really fascinating pattern starts to emerge. Now, correlation isn't causation, we all know that, but it's hard to ignore how periods of intense social strife in the city, like major dock strikes or political upheaval, often lined up with particularly ferocious and volatile derby matches. The data suggests that the football pitch became the one arena where the city's wider tensions could be played out. So that brings us all the way back to our original question: is this rivalry political or is it religious? The only real answer is that you just can't separate them. In 19th century Liverpool, your politics was your religion, and your religion was your politics. The Derby was born from this entanglement, and its story is woven into the very fabric of the city's identity. It's a tale of two clubs, sure, but it's really about one city, constantly defining itself through its divisions. At the end of the day, the history of the Merseyside Derby shows us that a football club is never just a club. It's a container for history, for identity, for community. It tells a story. So the question I want to leave you with is this: what part of your own story, your family's story, your city's story does your team tell?
The Merseyside Derby is more than just football. It's a shared history of a city that lives and breathes the beautiful game. Whether you bleed red or blue, one thing is certain: this rivalry will never lose its spark. We want to hear from you now. Who is the greatest player to ever grace this derby? Is it Ian Rush, Steven Gerrard, or Dixie Dean? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one of them. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to Sportx Radar. This was the 4th chapter of our Derby series, but we are just getting started. Stay tuned, because another legendary rivalry is coming your way very soon. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.